In previous videos, I explored some of the most persistent and damaging myths about Africa. And today, I want to dive deeper into a few more. One of the most dangerous lies I've often heard is the notion that African societies were inherently violent and that war was the primary feature of their culture. This oversimplification completely misses the mark, as it ignores the complex social structures and rich histories of African nations. It's easy to make assumptions from a modern, Western perspective, but we must recognize that African civilizations were far more advanced than most people have been led to believe. Welcome back to another episode exploring African history, culture, and heritage. Thank you to all of you who support this channel. Your support is instrumental in keeping this content going. Before we get into what I believe is the most misleading myth about Africa, let's take a moment to address a few other common misconceptions. One of the most prominent ones is the idea that Africa was a continent without advanced infrastructure, technology, or cities. This myth is deeply ingrained in popular culture and often comes up in the portrayal of Africa as a place without progress. However, when we look at African history, we see monumental achievements in architecture, engineering, and urban planning. For example, the city of Timbuktu in Mali was a center of learning, scholarship, and trade long before many European cities even existed. The Great Mosque of Djen, made of mud bricks, is a remarkable example of ancient African architecture and still stands today. Civilizations like the Kingdom of Aksum, known for their advanced architecture and trade networks, rivaled the best in the world. Yet, these historical landmarks and accomplishments are often overlooked. Another myth that I frequently hear is that African societies were entirely tribal, living in isolated, primitive villages. This idea is a huge oversimplification. In reality, many African civilizations had complex governments, advanced military systems, and extensive trade networks. The Kingdom of Kush, for instance, was a formidable military power, while the Kingdom of Zimbabwe was known for its sophisticated stone architecture. These societies were far from isolated. They were well integrated with global trade routes, and they had sophisticated political and social systems that are often underappreciated in the mainstream narrative. Now, let's focus on a lie that, in my opinion, has had the most damaging impact on African people. The idea that Africa was cursed due to the actions of a mythical figure in biblical history. This idea is known as the curse of Ham, a concept that has been used for centuries to justify the enslavement and exploitation of African people. While it's rooted in religious mythology, this lie has caused profound physical, psychological, and spiritual damage to generations of Africans and their descendants. The curse of Ham, as it is told in certain religious contexts, suggests that Ham, one of Noah's sons, was cursed and that his descendants, often believed to be black Africans, were destined for servitude. This idea was adopted by early Arab scholars and later amplified by European colonialists to rationalize the brutality of the African slave trade. It's one of the oldest and most insidious lies ever told, as it placed a spiritual and moral justification on the subjugation of African people, making them seem inferior or doomed. What makes this lie particularly dangerous is that it's not just a historical distortion. It has spiritual consequences. For many generations, African people internalized the idea that they were cursed, leading to feelings of inferiority, shame, and powerlessness. The belief that this curse was a divine punishment fueled a sense of hopelessness, pushing many to seek redemption through external validation or spiritual practices in an attempt to break the curse. In our efforts to undo this so-called curse, many of us have unknowingly fallen into patterns of self-doubt, confusion, and even self-hate. We've sought out material or spiritual achievements as a way to prove our worth, when in fact, we never should have believed we were cursed in the first place. This myth has created one of the most powerful and invisible enemies in our communities, contributing to the struggles we face today. Though the belief in the curse of Ham has largely faded, its effects still linger in the form of internalized racism, low self-esteem, and a fractured sense of identity. Even if we don't subscribe to this belief anymore, it's still critical to recognize how deeply this myth affected African identity. The residual effects of this harmful idea still influence how we view ourselves and each other. It's time we stop passing down this toxic paradigm to future generations. Instead, we must actively reject it and reclaim our true history, one of strength, wisdom, and unbreakable resilience. So, do you think the curse of Ham is the most damaging myth ever told about African people? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy these discussions and want to help ensure that this channel continues, consider subscribing and following on other channels. The link is in the description box below. As always, remember to know thyself and honor your ancestors.